Okay, so we're going to do some more solutions for the exam, this time FRQ. And I'm going to go into the FRQ and try and solve the assignment for you. So this one, we're going to do the first one in this video. And the first one is, you may remember, this is the running average. And the running average one, it was asking you to change the ratings or add ratings. So let's read through the question. This is pretty much standard stuff here. Assume all this stuff. What we have to make use of is you have to know your Java quick reference, okay? So all the functions and classes in the reference, you should know. I mean, that's going to be really important to know how to use them where appropriate. Then what you're going to do is you want to look through the class, what you've got here. Just take a look at it. It helps you to get familiar with what the class is asking. You'll see that some things are not shown, and you don't have to worry about them. All you need to worry about is that it works. That's the constructor. This is what you'll have to do for part A, write a method. For part B, you'll have to write another method. And this one here, it doesn't show you, but you just assume that it works. So you'll actually get a double back from the result, right? So you can sort of have an idea of, okay, this is what we're going to do. Let's look at the task. A manufacturer wants to keep track of the average of the ratings that have been submitted for an item using the running average. So now in this case, running doesn't necessarily mean running as in we're going to go for a run. This means the running time, like the running continual thing, right? It's continual. We're going to have a continual average, which will get updated. The algorithm for calculating a running average differs from the standard algorithm for calculating an average, right? So if you have an average already, you'll need to add to it. You can't just add that new average because you have to work out how many are already there. Like if my current average is based on 10 things and I add one more thing, I have now got a total 11 things, right? So it's kind of, you have to keep track of how many you've got. So there's average and then there's also count. And you can see it here in the variables. This is the number of ratings that we've had so far, and this is the average value, right? So that's why we've got 2. Okay, so we can see that here. So in part A, it says write the method update average, which updates running average to include a new rating. To update a running average, add the new rating to the calculated total, which is the number of ratings times the current running average. Divide the new total by the incremented amounts to obtain the running average. So it actually tells you how to do it. Pretty much there. And then it gives you an example. And sometimes reading the example is the easiest way to figure out what to do, because it's not always easy to tell exactly what it means in English. So sometimes you look at it and you can understand it better. All right. So to get to what we have here is we have a count of how many ratings we have. We have an average. The total is not really shown there, right? And so it says there are no other instance variables. So we don't really have a total. We're going to use that in our when we're writing our code. We can use a local variable to track total, and it's going to help us. So basically, let's just follow this procedure here. Let's copy that. And I'm going to go to Code.hs because that's going to be easier. And we're going to write our code here. It's just easier because it does the color coding for us. Okay. And let's move that across there. All right, so this is what we're going to do for part A. Update average. Okay, so let's paste in this comment field. Instead of that, I'm going to paste the comment that I have here of what we're meant to do, okay? I'm just going to make, this is a multi-line comment. And you can see here, there's my multi-line comment. Okay, so it kind of like, it tells you how to do it right there. And I'm going to do that, I'm going to use that to get my update, right? So the first thing, add the new rating to a calculated total. All right, where am I getting my new rating from? Well, is this get new rating? Something like that, right? That's going to give me a rating. It's going to give me a double value, right? So I'm going to use this to get my rating. All right, so firstly, I need a new variable called total, right? I'm going to need to make that the total amount. Currently, this class will have a count of how many ratings we've got and what the current average is. So to get the total, I would need to multiply the count by the average, right? To get the current total of how many, what the total amount is. So I'm going to multiply here, count multiplied by average. Okay, so now I've got my total. Now I need to get a new rating. So I'm going to use this function here, get new rating, and add it to the total. So total plus equals get new rating. So this has allowed me to add a new rating to the total. I also have to update count because now I've got one extra rating. So now I'm updating count. And now I need to update my average, okay? So I do have a new total, right? I do have a new count. Now, so what I've done here is I've add the new rating to a calculated total, right? Done that one, which is the number of ratings times the current running average. Okay, so I've just done what it's asked here. Divide the new total by the incremented count. Incremented means this. I've added 1 to the count. So average equals total divided by count. I'm not returning anything. This is a void method. All I'm doing is updating the average, which is here. So by doing this is all the steps that I need to do. And it's really straight from the question. Okay, I've taken that straight from here. Okay, so that's what the question was asking for, and when I grade this, when I do the grading, what I'm actually looking for here is it's going to say, do they make a variable? Do they declare it as double? That's 1 point. Do they multiply count by average? That's another point. Do they use this method here to get a new rating? That's another point. Do they increment the value of count? That's another point. And then do they divide total by counter and save it into the average? One more point, right? So that's how you get the points. It's for each one of these things has to be correct. All right. Let's go to part B and have a look at part B. Okay, so part B, it says, write the process new ratings method, which considers num new ratings for inclusion in the running average. So a helper method get new rating, which returns a single rating, has been provided for you. Oh, that's right. Oh, you know what? My bad. I've just noticed that we're not meant to use get new rating here. We were meant to use an input. That's my bad. Okay, let's go back here and fix that. I would have messed up. So actually we need, this is our new rating value, okay? We weren't meant to use that yet. I jumped ahead too far. So actually let's, no, take that out. And we're actually adding new val here. We're taking this. I know if you're probably screaming at me, if you knew the answer, if you saw that I was doing the wrong thing, I fixed it, okay. There we go. So, we're taking that in, adding it, okay, good. So, you would have gotten point here for adding this, using this to add it to total. But, in part B, we've been given the get new rating, which is great. But in what we have to write is we have to do process new ratings, which is going to take a number of new ratings, and we're going to use this number to call that function many times. So we're going to be calling get new rating many times, right? So now there's something we have to consider. The running average must only be updated with ratings that are greater than or equal to 0. Ratings that are less than 0 are considered invalid and are not included. So this kind of thing must only be updated with ratings greater than 0. There are two parts. You should be able to notice the two parts to this question here, okay? One is that we have to do something a certain number of times. That should tell you we're in store for a loop. Some kind of loop is going to happen. The second part is going to say there's a condition here. It has to be greater than or equal to 0. So we're not always going to update the rating every single time. There may be a condition. That should tell you that we have some kind of if or else statement, some selection statement, which is going to choose. So not only we have a loop, but we also have a condition inside the loop. So it'd be probably a for loop, given that we know how many loops we want to do, some for loop and then some condition inside. Okay, this is iteration, which is looping, and selection, which is if and else. All right, so here's some examples. We generate this, and then there is a return value. So process new ratings, you might have noticed here, has an int as a return value. So it's going to return a number based on whether it was successfully updated or not. Here it returns 0, meaning that it was okay. Ratings that are less than 0 are not included. So if there was a negative rating here, right, and nothing was updated, then we return 1. No new ratings are included. If we do some ratings and some of them work, like this one works. Wait, does 0 work? Greater than or equal to 0, yeah. So this one works, this one doesn't work, but this one does work and this one doesn't work. So some work, some don't. Some we include, some we don't. Then we have a value of 2, which means that these two are included, right? So we have to choose the return value based on whether it was successful or not. So there are a few things going on here, but let's do them all separately, okay? So the first thing to get working is the for loop, right? As we process the ratings. I think that's the first thing we should start on. Okay, so we have the input num, and we have, let's go back and reference we're going to be using this one, get new rating, right? We're going to use that each time we need a new rating. So let's go back to our code and start to process it. This is what we need to do. Now it might help to grab some text. So, well, actually, you know what? The comment is actually showing us what we've got to do. So let's use just a comment here to see what we have to do. Okay. In fact, that comment's probably, this one that I wrote before is probably better off above code 2. Okay, so let's go here and implement part 2. Now the one thing we do have here is a return value, okay? So we need to have an int return value. Let's just set that as 0 to start with. And let's return val. So that's going to be our return value we're putting at the end. In the meantime, we're going to do a for loop. And let's just write a basic for loop that we remember as like this. Okay, the basic for loop is starting at 0 and going up to the number we want. So we're processing this many ratings. Each time we're going to get a new rating. Okay, so what I want to do is the rating is a double. Okay, so I'm going to save a double and make a new variable here called rating and put it there. Okay, I'm going to use that variable. So let's have rating equals get new rating. That's a way to save the value. Okay, so we got the value here. Now we need to check this to see if it's greater than or equal to 0 to know if we're going to include it or not. So if rating greater than or equal to 0, we can add it to the average. Now here we've already got something to update the average, so let's use that with our new rating. And then if it's not, well, we won't do anything. In fact, we don't really need to worry about it. However, we do need to check to see what our return value is going to be. So at the moment, we have a rating, a return value of 0, which means everything's successful. If the rating was less than 0, now we have to decide, is it going to be 2 or is it going to be 1? Remember, our return values here could be 1 if nothing works, or it could be 2 if some do work. Okay, so we kind of need to know whether it's this one or that one. My return value is probably going to be, I need to have some kind of idea of whether I've had a good rating or not. And so therefore, I need to have probably a check at the end, right? A check at the end to see if there was any good ratings or bad ratings. So what I'm going to do is actually make an int variable for success and int fail. So I'm going to keep track of my success and fail. And so if I have an update, I'm going to go success plus plus. And the else part can be fail. Okay, so now I have, at the end of this loop, I'm going to have some working, some will be successful, some will be failing. If fail, if success greater than 0, and fail greater than 0, return val equals 2. Else, if fail greater than 0, return val equals 1, else return val equals 0. And then at the end return it, right? So this is now my final check to see which return val I should use. Okay, so that was a more complicated part. You should expect that part B will be more complicated. But what it's going to be checking is, do you get the new rating? Do you update the average? Do you keep track of success and fail? Right? And so what you really need to know is, do I have any things that work and don't work to be able to give the right return value? Now it's possible that we don't even have return value. We can just put return in here, but I've just chosen to have a variable there to prove it. Right? So as I grade this, usually I'm looking for different parts of these are true, right? This has got more points because you've got to have your for loop correct, you've got to have your if statement correct, and you've got to have that you're using this, you do the right return value, you do a test, so, and you do the final return as well. So there's more points for this one. Clearly it's a more complicated question. Okay, and that's it. Okay.